Hello, my name is Zack, and I'm here to talk about film authorship and the current landscape of mainstream film. My main claim is that there's no longer room for directorial authorship in the current landscape of mainstream film, and my supporting claims are that traditional directors are becoming less profitable. Two, very few mainstream or successful mainstream movies nowadays involve the director being an author of a movie. And three, that production companies don't allow for directorial control due to the brand being more valuable. On to the first claim, traditional directors are becoming less profitable. Looking at some examples of some directors that are incredibly focused in their movies, such as the Wachowskis, Robert Zemeckis, and Martin Scorsese, we can see that they've been running box office deficits for a while now. In particular, the Wachowskis have been running a box office deficit both domestically and foreign, worldwide box offices since 2008. Robert Zemeckis gets away a little bit easier with his movies Allied and The Walk, only being more recent failures, and more on the domestic side as opposed to the worldwide box office. And Martin Scorsese, while he has had a long history of successful movies, recently in 2016, his movie Silence has actually run quite a bit of a box office deficit with about $25 million lost. Now, even though some of the movies such as Cloud Atlas and Jupiter Ascending broke even in the worldwide box office scope, this is still detrimental to the production company, as Annie Mueller from Investopedia notes that the budget of a movie only incorporates pre-production, production, and post-production. That doesn't include marketing or distribution rights, and that can ultimately lead a movie that broke even to be a box office flop. And this is problematic because, if these traditional directors who make a movie according to their vision fail, then the production companies won't exactly want to pick them back up in the years following the failures. Onward to my second supporting claim, very few successful mainstream movies nowadays involve the director being an author of the movie. Looking at Box Office Mojo, a reputable box office database, we can see out of the top 10 movies of 2017, only 2 of them can be considered director-focused, and the movie is something that's distinctly their vision. Those being Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and Dunkirk, where directors James Gunn and Christopher Nolan, respectively, put quite a bit of effort into their movie in both the directorial sense, scene making, set production, and the script writing. While 20 years ago, that number was about 5 out of 10. Those movies being Titanic, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, Air Force One, As Good as It Gets, and Good Will Hunting. The difference can be found in the directors, where when directorial control and creative freedom meet production or productorial companies, when those two meet, nowadays it seems as though the production companies have the higher ground, whereas back 20 years ago, that was the opposite. The directors had the ground. In interviews, James Cameron would recite how he would tell the producers to, make the movie if they felt that, they had more of a grasp on how to make movies. They could just come in and do his job for him. Same with Steven Spielberg with The Lost World, Jurassic Park. He kind of took the original script and the book that the movie was based off of and threw it in the trash. He made it based on what he thought the movie should be. The biggest example of how producers or studio demands overpower the director in the modern era is with Gareth Edwards and Rogue One. When Edwards made his final cut of the movie, he showed it to Disney and they got cold feet, assuming the fact that the movie would be lukewarm or negatively received by the Star Wars community. So they hired Tony Gilroy and to rework and reshoot large swaths of his movie. Many can argue that the pre-established lore or universe of Star Wars doesn't exactly give credence to, directorial authorship. However, looking at Sam Raimi or Todd McFarlane, who picked up the Spider-Man universe in the 90s and the early 2000s, they made very distinct versions of the Spider-Man universe, and they had quite a large scope of creative freedom or license in these. Even classic Disney movies that adapted fairy tales left out quite a bit or changed a lot, yet they're distinctly Disney movies. Finally, production companies don't allow for this directorial control due to the brand being more valuable. Many directors have been taken off or left movies due to differences in creative control. This is something that's been happening more frequently with Edgar Wright leaving Ant-Man, various directors leaving the Flash movie, the upcoming Flash solo movie, and Colin Trevorrow leaving or being fired from Star Wars Episode 9 due to the producers having cold feet working with somebody who had a vision. The biggest example, though, is Phil Lord and Chris Miller of 21 Jump Street fame, who were fired from the upcoming Han Solo movie because Disney felt their brand of humor wasn't fit for the Star Wars universe. They have a specific way of directing movies when it comes to comedy. It's very improvisational, it's very limited on camera angles. However, 21 Jump Street proved successful. But Disney found that their brand of humor and shot direction was very antithetical to Star Wars. It was very not Star Wars, so they fired them. All right, so in conclusion, with traditional directors becoming less profitable, fewer successful mainstream movies being director-controlled, and with these companies not allowing directors to control them, I believe it's sufficient to say that there's no longer room for directorial authorship in the current landscape of mainstream film.
All right, I think you're going to have to define a little bit what the role of the director as author is and why it is important and it matters. I understand the concept. I think that not everybody is going to share that understanding and the importance to film. In essence, you've got to tell us that there's a reason that this matters if it is true, and so why should we care about this sort of thing? The examples that you use are okay. I think that that's the best part of the speech, is that you've got a lot of examples that you can point to support your thesis and suggest that there is in fact this diminishing of the power of the the director to control the vision of the film, at least when it comes to some of the particular brands that you're talking about. I think that we'd have to have a little bit of a survey of what the other films that were available constitute. For example, you use the current year, you've got two good examples of directors who you would describe as being authors, James Gunn and Christopher Nolan. Those are fine, but I'm not exactly sure that others wouldn't fit into some of the categories that you're describing here in other box office films. In other words, maybe not in the 5 top box office films, but maybe in all of the films released this year. Excuse me. I think there's another in there somewhere. Yes, there it is. So I think you've got good examples. The structure was set up pretty well at the beginning in the preview. I kind of lost the third point in the body of the speech, though, so you want to make sure that you're consistent in the citation there. I thought you did a nice job delivering the speech and explaining your concepts. You understood what it is that you're trying to say in your argument, and that I think enhances your credibility a great deal. Thank you.